Reality TV was a phenomenon that many of us viewers are still recovering from. You had the America's Next Top Model, you had the Glee Project, you had the Jerry Springer, you had the I Wanna Marry Harry, you had the There's Something About Miriam, which was... We had the lustrous, often imitated but never equaled, Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders making the team. You even had the interesting Bride special that popped up out of nowhere that I ended up getting jump scared with a few months ago. But no. We're here for Dance Moms. The iconic, haunting, terrifying, yet entertaining and campy show that had everybody glued to their seats. You just had to be there for that moment. You would have Abby instructing a group of kids and taking them to dance competitions every week. They would learn different styles. They would do duets and group numbers. And of course, the ever so ubiquitous solo. But within the Dance Moms franchise came a lot of extra content. You had Abby's Studio Rescue. You had Abby touring multiple studios across the globe. We had the revitalized version of Dance Moms Madhouse that's getting a second season despite it being a flop. And then, of course, we have Dance Moms A New Era with Glow and her amazing daughter Kaylee instructing the next generation of dancers, where the children are increasingly unhinged. But out of all of those shows, there's one that has been making waves recently. And I don't mean for the reasons that things make waves. Lifetime and Dance Moms have reposted all the episodes of Abby's Ultimate Dance Competition.
Today is not your day. You will be going home.
Yes, we're talking about the time Abby made a competition show. AUDC was such an interesting phenomenon, but the way I rediscovered AUDC was through the Dance Moms podcast. You see, the Dance Moms, the OGs, plus Jill, talk amongst themselves about what happened on their time on Dance Moms, but this ain't their first rodeo. They've had numerous podcasts. And so recently, they did an episode on Abby's Ultimate Dance Competition that had everybody and their mothers sat. With this new installment of discourse in the Dance Mom cinematic universe, I thought it would be quite fitting to go back in time to talk about Abby's competition show. But for the purposes of today, because there is so much to cover, we're only going to be doing season 1. So the way the show begins is at the casting call, where 14 dancers are competing for 12 spots during the live shows. They're chatting it up with their moms, they're being brought in style, and Abby, along with the other 3 judges, Robin and Richie, go over what's going to happen on the show. Yes, Robin Anton, the Pussycat Doll creator and choreographer. You also had the choreographer at the time for Lady Gaga, Richie Jackson. So each of the 3 judges have combos that they're going to be teaching the contestants in order to pick the 12 who are going to advance. Robin had a super fierce, fiery jazz funk combo, and then you had Richie who was free and who was more commercial, and then you had Abby doing what Abby does best, a pretty lyrical. There are gripes with certain people about the way Abby teaches choreography because she doesn't actually execute the movements, but this is honestly more common than you might think. However, some of the terms that Abby uses for some of these steps are leaving my brain.
Umbate, pony kicks. How about a buck and wing time step? You don't know what a buck and wing time step is? Dumb.
So while all of this is going on, we are subtly getting introduced to all of the contestants. The first of which we have is Hadley and her mom, Yvette. Hadley is the stereotypical competition kid with a dance teacher for a mom. She's fiery, she's passionate, and she thinks she's that girl.
Hadley, you gotta risk it to get the biscuit. Go the extra mile because it's never crowded. Don't fight it, just invite it. You're either in or you're in the way.
These two very quickly entered my enemy list radar, primarily because of the way Yvette was handling certain situations with the other contestants, and she is no stranger to the Dance Mom cinematic universe either.
I want this group number to be perfect. because nothing would make me happier than beating Abby after the way she's treated Hadley.
The next contestant we're introduced to is the iconic beloved Asia, who was 6 years old at the time, and her mom, Christy. These two were nothing short of reality TV gold. You definitely knew them because they were on season 3 of Dance Moms, and Asia would ultimately receive a spin-off show just about herself. She would also go on to release music. She graduated at the top of her class in high school. The way Asia was treated on AUDC honestly needs to be studied. The way the moms would go after and eviscerate a young child to exorbitant levels is something that's not gonna go unnoticed. The next contestants we have are both Tua and Lexine, and I'm purposely grouping them together because their moms are one and the same. The next contestant we have is Kylie J, who we don't get to know too much. She just wants to be the most famous pop star at the time. The next two contestants that we have on our list is Amanda Ginger and Nicole. Now, these two will become interesting for this segment for a specific reason. The next contestant we have is Tessa and her mom, Renee, who some of you might be familiar with as they were also on Dance Moms.
Mean women are what bother me the most. Women who are not happy with themselves and they're putting everything into just their child and living through their child. That really drives me nuts. Women are bitches. That's just the way women are. And if you can find a woman that's not a bitch, hallelujah.
Next up on the list we have is Jordan and her mom, Kelly. Now, Jordan has had a rather fruitful career in the entertainment industry. She was a musical artist for a few years and released some absolute bangers, if I might add. I was honestly shocked she didn't end up joining Dance Moms.
This is gonna be really funny for you to watch.
Sexy.
I don't know. Kind of.
Wait for the intro. Wait for
Jordan was the hip hopper of the bunch, and girly slayed every time she did that style. Kelly and Christy would essentially become a dynamic duo of moms, and to be honest, they were the reason why I ended up rewatching it again. Next contestant we have on our list is Elizabeth, who was the blonde bombshell. She's become infamous in AUDC for one scene only. Hadley should have been the one that left. She was horrible.
There's gonna be so many more things, so much more this world has to offer you.
I don't give a crap!
The next contestant we have on our list was Zach. Now, Zach was one of the strongest technical dancers. Honestly, it was so refreshing to see an amazing, talented male dancer on my screen at the time.
There are some moms that have said that I only win because I'm a boy. Like, I'm not very good. Like, they just think, oh, he gets a scholarship because he's a boy.
For those of you who don't know, Zach is now transgender and her name is Lennon. So for the purposes of this video, I'm now going to be switching over to her name Lennon, just so you guys understand why I'm going to be making the switch. The next contestant we have on our list is Amanda. She was essentially the prima ballerina, the ultimate technical dancer of the season that essentially threatened everybody, and for good reason. Her turnout, the way she executed the choreography, just gave pristine and polished. And Amanda was pretty well known in the dance industry throughout the years. She was on America's Got Talent that did a ballroom duo with her partner. I don't know why I forgot the man's name. His father is literally iconic. And speaking of which, Amanda was also on NBC's World of Dance, where she absolutely killed it.
For ballroom dancers, don't normally have that extension that you have.
But girly pop, what was that duels round? Why would y'all do that to me? And this isn't even the first time that Dance Moms cast members have been on big competition shows like World of Dance or So You Think You Can Dance. Cameron Bridges, who was on one of the later seasons of Dance Moms, competed on So You Think, and for some reason didn't even make it to the second round. Even though now she's literally dance backup for Kendrick Lamar, Victoria Monet, and then so many other celebrities. But I'm also not surprised because JoJo was also judging that season, so do with that information what you will. We also cannot forget that Nick Daniels, yeah, the flexible acrobatic contortionist Nick Daniels, was on NBC's World of Dance. And oh my god, How did that guy not make it further on that show? I know he went up against Fiction, and Fiction was amazing, but really? Anyways, tangent aside, next up on the list we have is Madison. Now, Madison was definitely one of the most talented dancers that season. You could tell that she has a lot of competition, training, and background, and she was a very beautiful dancer. And last but certainly not least, we have Brianna. Brianna was definitely one of my favorites. She was very pleasing to watch, very kind, and her mom was also just really chill, even though she would just get super emotional all the time. But now that we've given you a background on the contestants, let's head back to the casting call. So essentially all the dancers were learning the choreography by none other than Anthony Burrell. Anything that Anthony touched was just immediately turned into gold. Any choreography that man did on that show was always amazing. And then after all the dancers learned the choreography, they performed it back to the judges where they get critiques, where they were told who stood out in a positive way. And unfortunately, the two dancers who would be parting from the competition. And unfortunately, those two dancers were Amanda Ginger and Nicole. See, they were gonna be important, weren't they? But now we're on the live shows. Enter episode 1. So each week, Abby and the beloved host Kevin come up to all the contestants and introduce a group challenge dance. Essentially, they focus on a skill that is pertinent to becoming Abby's ultimate dancer, and they also have a theme for the week.
The main event is Hollywood. You're going to be divided into trios.
And the skill was technique.
If Tessa wins, or no. Forget that I even said if. When Tessa wins, because Tessa has great technique, that's definitely one of her assets.
The person who ended up winning the technique challenge was Elizabeth.
I know the skill for this challenge was all about the technique, but the minute I walked through that door, I noticed her. First impressions never go away.
Unfortunately, certain groups of people were not a fan that Elizabeth won.
I was a bit surprised that Elizabeth won the technique challenge. You know, overconfident people, I'm not attracted to. When people think they're all that in a bag of chips, you know what? Maybe they've been eating too many bags of chips.
And since Elizabeth won, she was able to pick her style of dance, which was contemporary. There were 4 trios competing, where they had tap, jazz, contemporary, and hip hop. So all the dancers at this point are learning their choreography, and Yvette just had to bring out her dance teacher mama bear energy.
On the first time that she goes down to the floor, what count or how many counts does she have to get up? So she does the straddle. I knew that Gina was the professional and she was in her element, but it was definitely tough to strap me down to the seat and hold my mouth shut.
But an uncanny veneer started to become much more noticeable with the choreographers who were on the show. They had
Bobby Newberry.
It's fabulous.
Okay, let's spread out just a little pinch.
my jaw dropped. I was like, what? He's here? But unfortunately, things would start to take a turn for our girl Tua as she is in a tap number, and tap is just not her favorite style. Renee also tries to reinforce this in her interview where Tessa and Tua, in her mind, would not even be in the same dance class.
I mean, she's levels ahead of Tua. They wouldn't even be in the same dance class.
Enter the live shows. First up was the hip hop, with Richie immediately clocking the girls not being able to do hip hop.
Girls, I want to say it was an okay job. What I saw right now was not hip hop. It was movement.
Why you pouring me? I'm right.
The judges were also able to start ticking the dancers who were going to do very well and make it very far. However, the top number is where things would start to derail for certain girls. Tessa, who was the lead of the dance, did not captivate the attention in the room, and Tua was a beat behind. And that would lead to Tessa's elimination.
Tessa, today is not your day. Thank you for being a part of the competition, and I'm sure we will see you again soon.
Thank you.
Enter episode 2. This week gave Halloween vibes, and the skill was physical strength. And of course, since the skill is about power, Abby's just gotta bring in comments about Lennon being the strongest.
Mr. Zach, come on.
Show us what you got, Flex.
Come on, show me what you... Oh, I don't know.
Everyone's expecting. He's a boy. Strength should be his forte.
So I'm concerned that he's going to be hit on for not being the strongest.
The choreography in this round as well was so unconventional and was abstract and extremely different, and that is where Jordan shined. She was so funky and fierce with it. She just added so much spice, and because Jordan's performance was so satiating, she got to pick a solo for herself, as well as get to pick another person to have a solo. And she ended up picking Lennon, which would definitely not work out in her favor. But one of the contestants, Elizabeth, seems to be off a little bit.
Right now, looking at you between these two dancers, not the best technique out of the three. Your head is not in the game. What's going on?
Well, my mom and dad, they're getting a divorce, and it's just been really hard on me.
Yvette decides to do what Yvette does best and mock her in front of a group of children.
Wait, the real hair or the fake hair?
She chimes in about Elizabeth's fake hair. I mean, who talks about a 13-year-old's appearance like that? You just don't do that, no matter how beautiful she is.
You know what? Today is my 14-year wedding anniversary. I'm getting a divorce. My daughter is having a really, really hard day. Back off of her.
A classic. Classic. Not debatable. Not up for debate.
And since Christy, the goat that she is, was aware of the situation, she stepped in and told Yvette off.
I mean, you're smiling, her daughter's crying. To me, that would not be acceptable.
To you, it's none of your business.
It isn't none of my business, but when a kid is crying,
you are out of control.
No, I'm not.
Out of control.
No, you don't know me.
And it was unfortunate for these trio of women to get into a scuffle because they would end up being in a trio. And Hadley reminds us that Elizabeth is not strong. She's a nice girl though.
Elizabeth is a nice girl, but she can be a wimp sometimes. She's not strong.
Jordan was working on her contemporary lyrical quality of her dancing. I honestly don't think the choreography was really designed for Jordan to perform well here. The story of her dance was supposed to be her having a nightmare and seeing spiders under her bed, but the choreography did not convey that in the slightest. It was bizarre when the judges were essentially trying to say Jordan didn't convey her story when she wasn't given anything with that choreography. And Lennon absolutely killed that dance. And Abby was making comments that have not aged well at all.
There was a moment, one moment, you were kind of flirting with me. Were you flirting with me?
Yes.
That's clown shit.
But the most iconic dance of the night had to be the Vampire Trio. Anthony absolutely bodied that choreography. It was so fierce and powerful and feminine, and that's what Anthony does the best. Brianna blew the dance out of the water. It was spine chilling. Amanda kept things technical as usual, and that resulted in Kylie J getting the guillotine. Jordan lived to see another day. And unfortunately, Asia would also be thrown into the bottom of the barrel. Elizabeth and Hadley smoked her.
I thought these two girls smoked you.
I agree.
When you did the jump and down into the straddle, your feet were completely sickled in that straddle. If the choreographer gives you a straddle, you better get your butt in the straddle.
But as Christy says, no way in hell Asia's gonna go home before Hadley. No way. On to episode 3. So this week's theme was American Extremes, with the skill being characterization. And so the routine this round conveyed exorbitant amount of emotion. And this was one of the first group numbers we actually got to see live. Season 1 was when we actually got to see plenty of group numbers, whereas season 2 we only saw one, I believe, was the finale. We didn't get to see any of them. They performed them, but they were just features on Lifetime. Some standout dancers in this round were Brianna, Lexine, and Jordan. However, the winner ended up being Lexine. And the prize for this round was that you could choose your duet partner. And she ended up choosing Hadley because she's on the top right now. Since Brianna conveyed the emotion in the group dance challenge so well, she was selected to be the lead of the number, which was centered around bullying. Now, if I would like to bring up some current discourse. So there's been this trend on TikTok about genders having relation to the Black community.
I just need to remind y'all again, everyone who is ginger, who has red hair, those are black people. All gingers are black people. If they have red hair, they are black. You see a white woman with red hair, that's a black woman. Gingers are black. All gingers.
And I honestly wonder if one of the reasons Brianna was bullied was because she was a ginger. I know that just seemed like out of pocket, but I can't unsee it now. So at this point, everyone is now in their respective rehearsals, where Elizabeth and Madison are portraying pageant winners, Hadley and Lexine are portraying like a rich girl, poor girl situation, and we also got politics between Brianna and Lennon. And Lennon and Brianna had to do some insane partner work. But since Tua has been sort of struggling and flying under the radar, she unfortunately would be eliminated.
Asia, you're stuck with us for one more week.
Oh my gosh.
Episode 4. The theme for this week is all things Broadway, and the skill was projection. And so all of the contestants were wearing number badges, and they were performing to live music as well, which just added a whole new dynamic into the mix. Honestly, that challenge in particular, Lennon was robbed. Don't get me wrong, Amanda did a beautiful job, but Lennon was just stronger. And since Amanda won the challenge, she ended up receiving a solo, which would cement Amanda as one of the strongest contenders of the season. She had this beautiful lyrical routine, and she was supposedly portraying a street performer. Her technique is beautiful. Her extension, how fluid she is, how precise she is. But this would also result in Lennon catching strays because they were in a hip hop routine with Brianna and Elizabeth. So all three of them in the routine were just catching a lot of critiques. But the only other routine this round that was particularly noteworthy would have to be Asia, Madison, and Lexine's trio. Yeah, let's just say the costumes were pushing it. But Asia stepped up to the challenge, even though earlier when she was learning the choreography, she was struggling. But Asia, whenever that girl gets on stage to perform, she kills it. And Madison was catching some strays because she was supposed to stand out, but she ended up getting outdanced performance-wise, which unfortunately resulted in her, Elizabeth, being in the bottom 3. And since they were some of the strongest dancers in the competition, the judges couldn't decide who to eliminate. So they did an on-stage turnoff, where they had to do 8 turns a la Saccone, pull it into a ballet passe pirouette, and then they had to improv out of it. And so, unfortunately, for reasons that absolutely baffle me, Lennon got eliminated. I was frustrated. I did not understand this at all. In my opinion, I feel as though Elizabeth's time here was always borrowed. The judges were even mentioning to Elizabeth that she needs to stop relying on her looks. When you look at her, you perceive dancer, but she doesn't perform that way. And so to eliminate Lennon just rubs me the wrong way. The way AUDC treats the male contestants has always rubbed me the wrong way. You know, in season 2 especially, I just got so frustrated with the way Abby treated Travis. But honestly, are we really surprised that Abby has weird expectations for male dancers, considering it took her 8 seasons to have a boy on her team permanently? And Kathy had boys on her team from the jump. From season 2, from the jump, Kathy had boys. Enter episode 5. So this episode's theme was all about end of the world, and the skill was survival, which is quite fitting. The choreographer they had for this week was Frank Gatson, who
worked with Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, Beyonce,
and the choreography bodied that entirely. And Madison high-key was robbed here. Madison actually truly stood out.
But wow, look at Madison. Her inner diva's coming out.
The best don't always win these challenges. Hadley ended up winning the challenge. I think the only thing that stood out about Hadley during this combo was the fact that she was very spunky. She got to choose all the assignments. And so Yvette's devil horns start coming out because she decides to sabotage everyone.
People forget I have not shared anything of Hadley's weaknesses, but they've been putting it out on the table, what dance style they don't like.
She put Elizabeth, Lexine and Amanda in a hip-hop number, because Amanda struggled with a hip-hop number the last time she did one. Elizabeth nearly got sent home the last time she did hip-hop. Oh, and let's not forget, Lexine basically has gotten nothing but hip-hop the time she's been here. Asia was put into a duo with Brianna, and Yvette's whole mindset was, well, she's partnered with one of the best dancers here, so she's gonna struggle. She's not gonna be able to perform well. Wrong.
Step 4, 1, 2, step.
Yvette comes into Brianna and Asia's rehearsal, and she does not get along with Christy. So why would she try and start something?
Excuse me, what are you here for?
Oh, to observe. I'm so excited.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, you're not going to observe right now. Move on.
I'm not going to.
Move on.
Nope.
Move on.
Nope.
Move on.
Nope. Did you see what happened?
You did. You sat here and she knows about you, so get your ass out of here now.
What was so funny about this was that she originally wanted to give Asia the solo because that would put Asia in a position where she would have to learn choreography quickly and she wouldn't have anyone else to feed off of.
What are you thinking?
Asia the solo.
No, I'm totally thinking Asia the solo.
She can't always remember choreography.
Yeah, they better be glad they didn't do that because Asia just would have stood out even more than she already did. And so Hadley and Yvette decided to give themselves a solo, which backfired on their asses so badly. But honestly, the way Hadley was treated once she performed this solo, it's become so infamous because Abby,
I'm reading your facial expression and you don't seem that happy.
Should I say roadkill?
Roadkill? Really?
Hadley, do you realize that you were laying there on the stage with your feet completely sickled? Then you proceeded to do a bridge and come up with your arms not anywhere near your ears. I didn't see good technique.
And basically all the other performances resulted in everyone being critiqued. Essentially, nobody had a good night. And it was really hard to watch Hadley lose her confidence and self-esteem, and Abby's comments were just so despicable and completely uncalled for. We all know that Abby has been out of pocket. This is not surprising, but man, it affected Hadley all the way through her dance mom days, which is heartbreaking. But fortunately for Hadley, that would not result in her elimination, and Elizabeth's borrowed time would have officially ended. Episode 6. So this episode's theme was about dancing through the decades, with the skill being improvisation. And since Asia won the dance battle, she was able to pick a duo with Lexine. And the performances this round is when you realize that basically the best dancers are left. Madison had a go-go inspired dance where she was like doing turns in the dark on a box. Brianna had a really interesting flapper number. It was super stylized and the choreography ate. Asia and Lexine's duo was just fun. It was just about girls having fun, and you know, they just want it now. But the star performance out of everyone's was Jordan's hip hop number. And Richie had to give us the hip hop lingo to boot.
You gave me the MC Hammer. You gave me the Running Man. You gave me a kick up. You gave me a schoolboy. Old way and new way. You gave me the James Brown split. Fantastic.
But the cracks started to fade in Hadley's self-confidence. She was partnered with Amanda. And the comments that were given to Hadley, especially during this round, just completely punched her down even further.
Hadley, you know, Amanda's better than you. She's just a better dancer. I mean, you're a very, very good quality dancer. But you have to know that Amanda, if you're on a racetrack, she's beating you.
So Robin says to Hadley, you're losing and Amanda's beating you. kick her while she's down. That was awful.
And unfortunately for her, that resulted in her being in the bottom 2 with Lexine. And Lexine, unfortunately, was eliminated.
Lexine, this is just the beginning.
Episode 7. So this theme is all about fairy tales, with the skill for this week being individuality. And so the choreography tried to embody this through more emotional, grandeur movement. And so that was when a lot of the dancers would start clocking that Amanda, Madison, and Brianna were at the top.
Madison's up against Brianna and Amanda, and those are probably her 2 strongest competitors. So it will be interesting.
And so the winner of the challenge would be Madison, and she got the lead of the group dance, and she did a contemporary ballet duo with Amanda. The group performance this round was very big and bold, and it was whimsical. Jordan ends up getting her redemption with her contemporary routine, and her mom, Kelly, definitely seemed extremely happy with Jordan's performance. She was very much on her child in the previous episode about needing to take this seriously, and it just resulted in the most toxic parts of the dance mom and dancer duality.
You continue to slide out and do a lunge with a turned in foot. Turn out your foot correctly and point it. I have things that you learned when you were 3 and 4 years old. I could be at home with my son and my husband, but I'm here with you, and it's not for recess and playtime.
But the standout performance this round, hands down, was Asia's Wicked Witch routine. The girlie was dancing in a trash bag, so it just made the intro of her coming out of the trash bag so interesting. But Hadley's performance is, I think, what made me the most proud. She perfectly brought herself back up from the ground, and the routine was definitely more of Hadley's style. And it was really hard when she was first learning the routine because she was suffering from panic attacks. I can only imagine how hard it must have been for Hadley having to go in front of Abby and perform her best in front of her. But unfortunately, the elimination would come down toe-to-toe with the women who were fighting it amongst themselves. Christy, Yvette, Asia, Hadley. And unfortunately,
today is not your day. You took it like a champ, and when I gave you those tough critiques, you stood there with a smile on your face and you learned something.
All the girls were just, they could not believe Hadley was being eliminated before Asia. So now we're on episode 8, and this is where we have reached the top 5. And so this week's theme was all about dancing across the globe, with the skill being flexibility. Not just flexibility of the body, we're seeing flexibility of the mind here, people. But in the end, that essentially didn't matter as much because Brianna's back flexibility or leg flexibility won her the challenge. And so she ended up selecting herself to do a African style contemporary routine. Lord have mercy, this routine was absolutely beautiful. And it honestly debunked a lot of stereotypes when it comes to African dance. The Dance Moms podcast even talked about Brianna's routine, and Christy was just surprised that this was the way Brianna was performing because of all the stereotypical dances Nia was doing. African dance can encompass a wide variety of styles. The hard-hitting chest isolation movements, it's also the subtleties, it's the worship dance of it all. It's the church aspect of it as well. And you can tell that Anthony really tried to portray a different style of African dance than what people are probably used to. Amanda ended up getting a ballroom Latin style routine, which is in her wheelhouse. And Corinne is just, Madison's mom's just, you know, she doesn't think it's fair.
It's gonna be a Bollywood dance. For a solo, would she ever think of doing an Indian Bollywood dance? No. Can you compare it to Amanda doing a Latin style dance? No. I'm sorry. It's not fair.
And this is honestly where Corinne started to work my nerve a bit, because this was also the episode where Madison was not being very nice to Asia.
After elimination, Asia tells me she overheard Madison saying, "Why is Asia here? I wish Hadley was here." And it really hurt Asia's feelings.
I am very sad that Madison wants me gone.
One of the interesting things about this round was that most, if not everyone, had decent performances. And so when it came to deliberation, guess who ended up falling in the bottom. That's right, Asia once again, and Jordan. Jordan had a really interesting routine, but it didn't necessarily surprise me that she ended up on the bottom. But unfortunately, since the judges once again could not decide, they decide to have another dance off on the stage, a flexibility off. And so the girlies were doing splits, they were doing leg holds on the ground, they were going into a bridge and crawling their hands up to their feet, and unfortunately, Jordan's body just said no more.
And she turns back to her mom and goes, I think I pulled a muscle.
We all knew when that happened, girly was out of here. She honestly does give me a bit of China Smith from So You Think in a way. Episode 9. So this episode is when everything comes to a boil. This whole week's theme was centered around the circus, with the skill being balance. Hence the balance beam. And they only had 20 minutes to learn the combo. Mind you, the combo is them literally doing a leg hold and having to do a split on the beam and holding it. Essentially, Abby used this challenge to reveal all of the dancers' weaknesses. Asia needed to improve her technique, Brianna needed to work on her foot closure, Madison and Amanda both needed to improve their performance.
Get a video camera app, tape her face, and let her see what she looks like. It's ridiculous. She has all this talent, and we could chop her head right off and put her head on her body.
All the dancers get assigned a solo, and each of them are trying to strategize how they can beat one other dancer to make the top 3.
This is it, okay? This routine is important. We can beat Madison, we can beat Amanda. They have nothing going on right here, but we're concentrating and we're gonna knock one of them out.
Amanda.
Amanda? Why?
Because how strong I am and how my facial expression kills her.
This week also had a circus-themed group number where they were doing acrobatics on various apparatuses, and it was difficult for the dancers, to say the least. They were going at it for 45 days and they were exhausted and tired and physically drained. And now that we are entering the live shows, all of the girls are performing their solos and each of them have various breakthroughs in their performances. Both Madison and Asia advanced on to the finals, which resulted in Brianna and Amanda in the bottom 2. Brianna did a phenomenal job. There were no issues, but they did end up having a few critiques for Amanda. She was supposed to portray a contortionist and there just weren't a whole lot of acrobatics in the routine, which I thought was funny to have Amanda be a contortionist when she's more of a Latin jazz ballet dancer and she isn't an acrobat, and unfortunately that would result in Amanda being eliminated. Enter episode 10. We are at the finale, people. We are down to the top 3. Asia, Madison, and Brianna. And so each of the 3 are now getting ready and discussing with their moms what it would mean to become Abby's ultimate dancer. And from there, they go on to participate in one final group dance challenge where Abby is assigning them a beautiful lyrical routine where she actually choreographs. So that resulted in Madison coming out on top. And so by coming out on top, Madison was able to choose when she could perform her solo, as well as the other girls' performances. So Asia was gonna go first, Brianna second, and Madison closes the show. Because if you close the show, that's the dance that they're going to remember most. And so each of the girls end up having a mentoring session with each of the judges. Asia, of course, was mentored by Abby, Madison with Richie, and Brianna with Robin. Brianna was working on the softer, feminine qualities of her dancing. Madison was focusing on performance and truly conveying emotion. Asia was focusing primarily on her technique. And so all of them are now learning their solos for the upcoming stage show as well as a trio. And the solos this round were phenomenal. Asia had a jazz solo done by the amazing, talented icon Molly Long. Molly has gone rather viral recently because of her recent competition number, Pop Music, and for good reason. Molly's style of choreography is just so satisfying. And as someone that was able to take class with Molly, I can attest that she is literally the sweetest human on earth. The trio didn't really have much sway over the girls in the competition. It essentially just put them at a standstill because even Madison and Brianna were sort of trying to feed off of each other and they were off. And it was so funny to see that they were focused on Asia once again. Corinne, stop focusing on the 7-year-old. And then when they started rehearsing and performing the group number, most of the cast members come back.
People have come back and it just lightens the mood so much. It makes this easier.
So this results in, yes again, more drama because some of them just can't fathom that Asia was in the top 3. I thought she was gonna make it into the top 5.
I did not think Asia was gonna make the top 3. I thought she was gonna make the top 5.
But the final performances from the dancers in their solos was when everything came to an end. Asia absolutely slayed. She had that swagger. She strutted down that runway. Madison had a breakthrough performance emotionally. She was expressive, it was heartfelt, and it was light and delicate, as well as having a bit of a punch. Brianna truly conveyed what a dancer is supposed to be. Powerful, strong, emotional, and having a drive and passion. Her performance was definitely the biggest standout of the night, and that resulted in the judges battling it out to see who was going to win. In Abby's mind, she wanted Madison to win because Madison is her body type of a dancer, technique level of a dancer, fits the image of a dancer. Asia, unfortunately, was just kind of kicked to the curb. She just wasn't even going to be considered.
The dancer who placed last in this final competition is Asia.
But Brianna ended up edging Madison out due to consistency because she was performing with her face from day one. You guessed it, the two finalists, Madison and Brianna, waiting with bated breath to see who will take home the $100,000 and the New York City scholarship at the Joffrey Ballet School. And the winner is...
Brianna.
When I heard Abby say my name, I broke down. I couldn't believe that my dream had finally come true.
And that concludes AUDC Season 1. So this was a lot of fun to go over and discuss this, but my camera is about to die, so I'm gonna have to go now. Thank you all so much for watching. Okay, bye.